Thank you and welcome to everyone joining us this year for our December the 6th service. Another year has gone by, but we have not forgotten the 14 women who died on December 6, 1989. Today's service will include many guest speakers, our candle lighting ceremony, and a moment of reflection and photo submissions from our community partners. To open our service, I would like to welcome Adora from the YWCA to provide our land acknowledgement.
Merci et bienvenue à tous ceux qui se sont joints à nous cette année pour notre service de 6 décembre. Une autre année s'est écoulée, mais nous n'avons pas oublié les 14 femmes qui sont mortes le 6 décembre 1989. Le service d'aujourd'hui comprendra de nombreux orateurs invités, notre cérémonie d'allumage de bougies, un moment de réflexion et de photos soumises par nos partenaires communautaires. Pour ouvrir notre service, j'aimerais accueillir Madora de YMCA pour qu'elle prononce la reconnaissance de terre.
Today, I join you from YWCA Hamilton, located on the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties within lands protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. In marking December 6, I want to acknowledge the ongoing legacy of colonization and the unsolved cases of murdered and missing Indigenous women, girls, and two-spirited LGBTQ+ people who cannot be forgotten and who have yet to be returned to their communities and families. 2 years ago, 231 calls for justice came from the National Inquiry on Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls. After hearing the stories of heartbroken families who have lost loved ones, what have we done? We do not have a clear national implementation strategy, and Indigenous communities and organizations continue to be underfunded. We must recognize and support the important work of Indigenous-led organizations like Native Women's Centre and acknowledge the incredible resilience of their staff who continue to respond to the ongoing violence Indigenous women face. Indigenous women are 12 times more likely to be murdered or missing. The time for talk is over, and the time for action is now. It is our responsibility as settlers and allies to name this injustice and demand accountability and action from our governments. We will not remain silent.
Memory is often silent, as if dozing off, lulled by the warmth of a wood stove. But every once in a while, it wants to talk. It wants to tell stories and histories, because sooner or later, memory needs to be shared.
La mémoire est souvent silencieuse, comme si elle s'assoupissait, bercée par la chaleur d'un poêle à bois. Mais de temps en temps, elle veut parler. Elle veut raconter des histoires et des histoires, parce que tôt ou tard, la mémoire a besoin d'être partagée.
Because they were women. The title of Josie Beaulieu's book on the events of December the 6th says it simply. The 14 women who died in Montreal on December the 6th were killed because they were women. They were women, they were children, they were friends, family, and students, and they were loved. Today, we gather at a distance because of a pandemic, and in the midst of this pandemic, another pandemic rages on, one that is in the shadows. This pandemic, much like some memories, remains hidden and silent. And like a memory needing to be shared, this pandemic, called gender-based violence, needs to be recognized, heard, remembered, and most importantly, addressed. We are here today to remember. We will remember, honor, and grieve the lives of 14 young women and loved ones, and we will remember the egregious act of violence and attack on women that stole the lives and continues to harm so many. Our remembrance today will act as a spotlight and will illuminate the shadows and continue to bring awareness to the issues of gender-based violence. We hope that the words spoken today act as a guiding light for future generations to uplift and protect women and girls in our society. Please welcome our first guest speaker, Mayor Eisenberger.
Parce qu'elles étaient des femmes. Le titre du livre de José Beaulieu sur l'événement du 6 décembre le dit simplement. Les 4 femmes qui sont mortes à Montréal le 6 décembre ont été tuées parce qu'elles étaient des femmes. Elles étaient des femmes, des enfants, des amis, des membres de famille, des étudiantes et elles étaient aimées. Aujourd'hui, nous nous réunissons à distance à cause d'une pandémie et au milieu de cette pandémie, une autre pandémie fait rage, une pandémie qui reste dans l'ombre. Cette pandémie, tout comme certains souvenirs, reste cachée, silencieuse. Et c'est comme un souvenir qui a besoin d'être partagé. Cette pandémie appelée violence sexiste a besoin d'être reconnue, entendue, remémorée et surtout traitée. Nous sommes ici aujourd'hui pour nous souvenir. Nous nous souviendrons, honorerons et pleurerons la vie de 14 jeunes femmes et de leurs proches et nous nous souviendrons de l'acte de violence flagrant, une attaque contre des femmes qui a volé leur vie et continue de nuire à tant de personnes. Notre commémoration d'aujourd'hui sera un coup de projecteur qui éclairera les ombres et continuera à sensibiliser le problème de la violence sexiste. Nous espérons que les mots prononcés aujourd'hui serviront de guide aux générations futures et pour élever et protéger les femmes et les filles dans notre société. Veuillez accueillir notre premier orateur invité, le maire Hélène Bergeron.
What should have been a joyful celebration of camaraderie and the end of the school semester turned into a tragedy. On December the 6th, 1989, a man entered a classroom at École Polytechnique de Montréal, targeted the female engineering students and shot them. And as we hold the memory of 14 brilliant, creative, and intelligent women, beloved sisters and cherished daughters, we must continue to advocate, stand in solidarity, and vow to speak up and protect women and those that identify as women. December 6th is National Day of Remembrance and Action on Violence Against Women. Let us commit to actively participating in the conversation and being fierce advocates to drive forward changes in our communities.
Thank you, Mayor Eisenberger. We now welcome Paula Whitlow from the Native Women's Center. Paula will also be lighting our first candle of the evening in honor of the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, whose lights were stolen, but we do not forget.
Merci, Monsieur le maire Heisenberger. Nous accueillons maintenant Paula Whitlow de Native Women's Center. Paula va également allumer notre première bougie de la soirée en honneur des femmes et des filles autochtones disparues et assassinées, et dont les lumières ont été volées, mais que nous n'oublions pas.
Sego Swagwego. On behalf of Native Women's Center, we are honored to be able to light this candle in reflection of the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls across this country. There are too many. One is too many, but a lot have not been found, and many families are grieving with no answers of even where their missing and murdered loved ones are. So we are here to advocate on behalf of them to make sure that we have answers, and most of all, we get justice.
Thank you, Paula. Now please welcome Tessa McFadgen, speaking today on behalf of the Women Abuse Working Group.
Merci, Paula. Maintenant, veuillez accueillir Tessa McFadgen, qui s'exprime aujourd'hui au nom du groupe de travail sur la violence envers les femmes.
Welcome. I begin by asking each of you to pause and reflect on your day, to think of all the places you have traveled. Do you live with others? Perhaps you got on the bus. Maybe you went through a drive-thru, or even you visited a store. How many people did you come across? Think about that for a second. How many women did you encounter in your travels? 10, 15, maybe even 50? For every 3 women you cross paths with, 1 will, has, or currently is experiencing violence. 1 in 3 women, a number significantly higher if we were to consider the social constructs set to disempower Black, Indigenous, people of color, 2S LGBTQIA+ communities, and women with disabilities. Today is the National Day of Remembrance and Action on Violence Against Women, a day in which we give pause to remember the lives of 14 women murdered for being women. 32 years ago, 14 women filled with ambition, drive, determination, were tragically murdered by a man filled with hate, a hatred for feminism, and ultimately a hate for women. Today, we will honor the lives of those 14 women, we will name them and offer a moment of silence. Today, we will honor the lives of women who tragically came before them and those who have been murdered since as a result of gender-based violence. I ask you to imagine your day, to visualize the tasks you carried out and how many women crossed your path. Now play back those images, only this time with 1/3 less women. And while I wish I could say this is an exercise in theatrics, it is rather the sobering reality of the current gender-based violence pandemic. So far this year, there has been 47% increase in known femicides in Ontario, representing 53 women. What's more is that we know violence is often underreported, that there are thousands of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, and that these numbers are a small representation of truth. Today is about remembering and honoring, but today also serves as a day in which we repledge our commitment to ending violence against women, a commitment fraught with persistent and historic systemic barriers serving to empower the privileged and disenfranchise others. Where do we go from here? As citizens committed to the eradication of violence against women, what is our next step? Instead of asking, why doesn't she leave? Question where she will go. In Hamilton, the emergency shelter systems continue to experience a capacity crisis. Demand for space exceeds availability. Permanent, safe, affordable housing options for women and children are minimal at best. Instead of questioning why she doesn't press charges, consider a broken legal system that favors the good behavior of perpetrators over the risk of lethality of women. Consider the number of perpetrators who have injured or killed women while on probation or parole, the countless stories of women's testimony and medical evidence being disbelieved. Instead of saying boys will be boys in response to inadvertent or blatant forms of violence, unwanted sexual harassment that perpetrate a culture normalizing violence against women, take notice and act. Early intervention is the most cost-effective action we can take to disrupt patterns of violence. Instead of questioning what she was doing, wearing, or saying to cause the violence, question why the perpetrator felt violence was acceptable. In order to build safe, healthy, and thriving communities, we must become comfortable in the discomfort of challenging systems, structures, and institutions that create and perpetuate a culture where violence against women is seen as a symptom of a failed system. And we must act with intentionality and integrity, not just on days of activism and awareness, but every day, to build a world in which women and children live free from gender-based violence. Today, we remember, and every day moving forward, we act. Thank you.
Thank you, Tessa. They were women killed while attending school. École Polytechnique holds a lasting memory and impact on many who were there that day and who continue to learn about the targeted act against women and the way our society views, treats, and understands women, women of color, Black and Indigenous women, and trans women. We welcome first Emily and then Sakshi, two mechanical engineering students from McMaster University who will share their perspective and insight from a new generation.
Merci Tessa. Ce sont des femmes qui ont été tuées alors qu'elles fréquentaient l'école. L'école polytechnique a un souvenir et un impact durable sur beaucoup de gens qui étaient là ce jour-là et qui continuent à apprendre sur les actes ciblés contre les femmes et sur la façon dont notre société voit, traite, comprend les femmes noires, les femmes de couleur, des femmes autochtones et les femmes transgenres. Nous accueillons d'abord Émilie et ensuite Sakshi, deux étudiants en génie mécanique de l'université McMaster qui partageront leur point de vue et leur vision d'une nouvelle génération.
I'm Emily Cooper, a third-year mechanical engineering student at McMaster University. December 6th to me is a period really for reflection. I think it's important to recognize that this was an anti-feminist attack and also to read the names. I find this adds a personal connection to it and really recognizing that every one of these women had a story. And then moving on, I think it's also important to recognize and see how far we've come, where we are today, and the steps that we still need to take. Looking to where I'm at today as a female in engineering, I am part of a program that is now 30% female. And I think that's largely because of the women of the past that came into the field knowing they were going to be a minority and continued. And so if I had anything to say to those women, it would be that I was truly, truly sorry. But that, you know, women today and of the future are going to do everything that they can to continue to have a voice and to continue to raise that percentage, you know, go from 30, let's see if we can get it to 50%. And not only in schools, but also in the workplace. So I think that's the main thing for me. When I was choosing to pursue engineering when I was in high school, I think one of my biggest concerns was you never want to feel like you're a minority, you never want to feel like you're not like everyone else, or like you're not going to be respected. And so that's been the biggest change I think that's evolved over these years, is I come into my classes and I feel like my opinion is valued. I feel like I belong in the groups that I'm in. And you know, that wasn't something that was always the case, and that's going to be something that we're going to have to continue to grow upon. And that doesn't just apply at school, but that's going to apply into the workplace, and to also see women in positions of power in engineering and beyond, I think is going to be a really big step for the future. And you know, recognizing that my position, I'm very, very lucky, right? And I think it's important that I can do whatever I can to make sure that females have it, you know, just as good and potentially even better in the future. So this day is very, very important to recognize, you know, how far we've come, but still mourn, because this was truly a tragic event and violence against females exists everywhere, right? And so despite how far we've come, there's still work to be done, but I'm really proud to see where we are today.
My name is Sakshi Kirtani. I'm a mechanical engineering and management student at McMaster University. As a woman in engineering, I feel like it's my responsibility to give tribute to what happened in December 6th by doing what I love and whatever passions I have, which is mechanical engineering. When I grew up, I had a very backlash from my parents for going into mechanical engineering, because it's seen as this boy club and very dirty, because the machine shop, you have cars, manufacturing, and so it's not an ideal place to see females in. However, I love moving objects, I love designing, and so I wanted to go into mechanical engineering truly for the passion side. And so I don't want other females to feel like they have to choose what engineering discipline even to go into purely based on, it could be gender, it could be religion, it could be anything, because at the end of the day, engineers are innovators, they gain skills through classrooms, and so being a female should not dictate what kind of engineer I should be. And so this day really is a reminder for all of us to be more inclusive for the minorities out there, so females, different religions and different genders as well. And so it's so sad to what happened, and I don't want this to happen again. And so we should take time in our day to really reflect and learn and grow, because these events are meant for us to reflect and to think about what's going on in our societies. So I think we're in the right stepping stone in terms of where we should be in our future, and females should not go into fear when coming into engineering. Coming into first year, I was terrified. I didn't think I was smart enough, good enough for anything, and having on top of that being a female and being disregarded because of that should not be a thing whatsoever. So I think it's all of our responsibilities in this generation to help females, help different minorities come together and to build this collaborative space at the end of the day. Today I am going to be studying for my exams, hopefully crushing it, and I'll be thinking about all the women that went through the hardship that they did to get me to whatever state that I am today. Like, I am so thankful for the sacrifice almost they made for us, because it's allowed me to pursue my passions for mechanical engineering and management.
Thank you both for your powerful words and perspective. It is evident that we as a community still have more work to do. We will introduce our final guest speaker today from Centre de Santé. Welcome, Espérance.
Merci à toutes les deux pour vos mots puissants et votre perspective. Il est évident qu'en tant que communauté, nous avons encore du travail à faire. Nous allons présenter notre dernier orateur invité aujourd'hui du Centre de santé. Bienvenue à Espérance.
La Journée nationale de commémoration et d'action contre la violence faite aux femmes est soulignée en souvenir des 14 jeunes femmes de l'École Polytechnique de Montréal, sauvagement assassinées le 6 décembre 1989. C'était, selon le tueur, pour l'unique raison d'être des femmes. La commémoration de ce féminicide nous rappelle l'importance de rendre hommage aux victimes qui nous ont quittés, de réitérer notre soutien aux survivants de violences faites aux femmes et de consolider notre engagement à y mettre fin. Une femme sur 3 souffre de violences dans le monde. Au Canada, une femme meurt tous les 6 jours aux mains de son compagnon. De janvier à septembre 2021, 41 féminicides ont eu lieu en Ontario. Durant tout le temps de cette crise pandémique de COVID-19, l'aggravation des incidences de violences basées sur le genre et l'augmentation des féminicides ont été au pays et partout dans le monde une évidence. Les conditions sanitaires dues à cette pandémie sont actuellement moins sévères que l'année dernière et les taux de vaccination sont fortement encourageants. Cependant, nous continuons d'observer un accroissement des agressions à caractère sexuel, de violences familiales, de violences conjugales et entre partenaires intimes. L'utilisation d'Internet, devenue plus fréquente, notamment chez les jeunes, augmente les risques de sollicitation en ligne à des fins sexuelles et de cyberviolence. La pression financière peut rendre certaines personnes encore plus vulnérables au harcèlement en milieu de travail ainsi qu'à l'exploitation sexuelle. La pandémie a des répercussions différentes sur chaque femme et fille en fonction des conditions personnelles dans lesquelles elles se trouvent. Elles sont plus à risque d'être victimes de violences si elles sont autochtones ou racialisées, si elles sont en situation de précarité financière, si elles vivent avec une limitation fonctionnelle ou un handicap, si elles sont membres de la communauté deux esprits, lesbiennes, gays, bisexuelles, transgenres, queer, personnes en questionnement, intersexes, asexuées et plus. Elles sont aussi plus à risque si elles font partie de la population des aînés, si elles vivent dans les communautés rurales et éloignées, si elles sont immigrantes ou réfugiées et si elles appartiennent à une minorité linguistique. Pendant cette crise pandémique en constante évolution, le Centre de santé communautaire Hamilton-Niagara continue à offrir en français des services de soutien psychosocial personnalisés, confidentiels et sécuritaires aux femmes et aux filles victimes de violences basées sur le genre, quelle que soit la forme, ainsi qu'à leurs proches. Nos services sont sensibles à la réalité des francophones en milieu minoritaire et font recours à une approche intersectionnelle tout en tenant compte des répercussions du traumatisme vécu. Dans la province de l'Ontario, la ligne de crise FAMED offre le soutien aux femmes d'expression française aux prises avec la violence sexiste, 24 heures par jour et 7 jours par semaine. FAMED peut également répondre aux demandes de renseignements faites par les proches des femmes victimes de violences. Souvenez-vous, vous n'êtes pas seul, des services en français existent dans votre communauté.
Merci Espérance. Chaque année, nous allumons une bougie pour chaque femme qui a perdu la vie le 6 décembre. Bien que nous ne puissions pas être ici en personne, nous sommes liés par l'esprit, par la mémoire et par le chagrin.
Thank you, Esperance. Every year, we light one candle for each woman who lost their life on December the 6th. Although we cannot be here in person, we are connected in spirit, in memory, and in grief.
Michèle Richard, Geneviève Bergeron, Hélène Colgan, Nathalie Croteau, Barbara Daigneault, Anne-Marie Edward, Maud Haviernick, Maryse Laganière, Maryse Leclair, Anne-Marie Lemay, Sonia Pelletier, Annie Turcotte, Barbara Klucznik-Widajewicz, Annie St-Arneault,
We will now light the last candle. On behalf of Interval House of Hamilton, we extend our sincerest condolences to the families and loved ones of the 14 women. We will not forget you, and we will continue to work tirelessly with our partners towards building a safer and healthier community for women and girls, now and in the future.
Nous allons maintenant allumer la dernière bougie au nom de Interval House de Hamilton. Nous présentons nos plus sincères condoléances aux familles et aux proches de 14 femmes. Nous ne vous oublierons pas et nous continuerons à travailler sans relâche avec nos partenaires pour construire une communauté plus sûre et plus saine pour les femmes et les filles, maintenant et à l'avenir. Veuillez nous joindre à nous pour un moment de silence.
Please join us in a moment of silence. Thank you for coming together to remember and honor the lives that were ended on December the 6th by a senseless act of violence against women. And although 32 years have passed, we recognize and know there is still work to be done to protect women. Prior to the pandemic, we gathered in person, and I want to extend a huge thank you to everyone who is watching, to the community members who assisted us in producing this service, and to everyone who will be lighting their own candle in solidarity. As you light a candle of your own, please observe the final part of this evening's ceremony, which includes pictures taken and artwork created for the 14 women we pay tribute to today.
Merci de vous être assemblés pour vous souvenir et honorer les vies qui ont été brisées le 6 décembre par un acte insensé de violence contre les femmes, et bien que 32 ans se soient écoulés, nous reconnaissons et savons qu'il y a encore du travail à faire pour protéger les femmes. Avant la pandémie, nous nous sommes réunis en personne et je tiens à remercier chaleureusement tous ceux qui nous regardent, les membres de la communauté qui nous ont aidés à produire ce service et tous ceux qui allumeront leurs propres bougies en signe de solidarité. Pendant que vous allumerez votre propre bougie, veuillez observer la dernière partie de la cérémonie de ce soir, qui comprend des photos prises et des œuvres d'art créées pour les 14 femmes auxquelles nous rendons hommage aujourd'hui.
Thank you for remembering. We hope that today's ceremony provides a light in the shadows, hope for new generations of women and girls, and drives you to protect and uphold the lives of women and girls in our society. We end our ceremony today by remembering and speaking their names, and leaving in solidarity with love in our hearts and a memory.
Merci de vous souvenir. Nous espérons que la cérémonie d'aujourd'hui apporte une lumière dans l'ombre, un espoir pour la nouvelle génération des femmes et des filles, et vous pousse à protéger et à défendre la vie des femmes et des filles dans notre société. Nous terminons notre cérémonie aujourd'hui en nous souvenant et en prononçant leurs noms, et nous partons en solidarité avec de l'amour dans nos cœurs et un souvenir.